Hello, and welcome to Top Deck Monthly Cup number 2. We've got a special bonus edition this week. We're doing the second semifinal match between Laurie and Jesse, and this match has been previously recorded, so I've actually got Laurie and Jesse here with me to watch it and comment. So
We're not going to tell you what we're doing while we're doing it. We'll make it a little too
well,
easy.
my hope is that maybe we can get a little insight, into why you do the things that you do, and hopefully people will, get to learn something from that. So,
No,
welcome.
we'll pretend it's not random.
Yeah. So Jesse, I want to welcome you. This is your first time coming on the stream, so welcome to the stream. How are you doing
Thank you.
today?
I'm well. Had a family Christmas party yesterday, so that was really nice and enjoying the festive cheer.
Awesome. Well, I'm assuming it's probably pretty early in the morning for you right now.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's 9 o'clock, so I should
Okay.
definitely be awake.
Well, we got a wide range here. We've got it's about in the midst of the late afternoon here. It's nighttime where Lori is, and you're in the morning. So we're sort of like appreciating all aspects of the globe right now. Lori, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm good, Greg. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, let's talk about these. Let's talk about these players that are you guys.
Yeah, it's us.
That is us.
Hey.
All right. So you guys really won't be able to see this unless you have the stream up. But so yes, we have Jesse. Jesse is he's a veteran of Top Deck. He was in last season as well. Made it to the quarterfinals, I believe.
I think so. Is that the second round?
That would be the second round. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quick jump into the quarters. So Jesse, I almost ran out of space writing in Jesse's accomplishments, so bear with me. He was 17th at Worlds in 2016, was the Australian champ in 2015.
14.
Oh, 14.
Don't want to steal from Dell.
Okay,
That's all right.
sorry. And yeah, correct me if I get any of these wrong. And
That's all right.
this year you were second place, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And you did, in fact, win a regional this year.
Mm-hmm.
And top 16 worlds in 2014.
Mm.
Today, we'll be featuring you playing Sync and Wizard.
Yeah.
Just curious, how I think, did you play Sync and Wizard at Worlds, if I'm not mistaken?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Are these lists kind of similar, or did we mix it up a little bit?
They are, and because this was pre-martial law, this round, it was the pretty much the last chance to try and play Sync Boom 24/7 without on the lam being an issue. So I thought I'd just give it one last run, seeing as it had done pretty well for me. And the Wizard deck, yeah, Wizard's still good. You've got to be able to trash assets, possibly even more now than at Worlds. And while it can run sort of pretty close to the line in some matchups in terms of economy, in terms of cards and accesses, and you've got to manage all your resources pretty carefully, I felt pretty comfortable with the deck. Although seeing potential unleashed across the board, it wasn't something that I had tested the deck against previously. And I knew that, particularly with Faust in the deck and in my opening hand here, managing the cards in my deck was going to be a big challenge.
Nice. And I was going to ask you, so on the lam, what's the interaction with the Sync deck specifically that you're referring to? I'm not like up on martial law yet. I'm sort of still in the past. So
Sure. So it's particularly against Crims, which was a sort of one of the more difficult matchups for CCM. And one of the reasons that I decided to play the Sync deck was that when they have Temujin and Siphon, Gambler's Dirty Laundries, or their economy, they can get on top of your economy pretty quickly as a corp, because no corp economy can really keep up with that. Your way to get back into the game was to 24/7 closed accounts them. And then they were pretty much out of the game because they'd expended all these resources building up a massive pile of 30 credits. And suddenly you'd gotten rid of that relatively quickly and painlessly. And then from that position, you could hard hitting use them. You could do all sorts of things, and all your cards are live again, basically. If they have On the Lam, all they need to do is build up those credits and have On the Lam sitting on one of their resources. You can't 24/7 them. You can't close accounts them. You can't get back into the game. So that makes it pretty hard.
Okay, so it's the resource that it attaches itself to another resource, and I think you can like block tags. Is that what it is?
Yeah, you can block 3 tags in one instance of 3 tags or 3 damage. And yeah, it's the fact that you can block 24/7. That's the big issue.
Right. Okay, cool. So let's look at Laurie's profile, which we have looked at before, except now we have a British flag on there that I added today. So one interesting note that I noticed is that Jesse's flag has Laurie's flag inside of it. So that was interesting. Yay for colonialism. So Laurie was the Greek Nationals champ in 2015 and also a regional champ in 2016. Last time Laurie was with us, he played the Andy Power Tap deck, if I'm not mistaken. But his corp was something different. And if you could refresh me, I think it was...
Banana Grail last round.
That's right. Yeah, it was also spicy. So this week we had you playing Potential Unleash, or as you call it, Potatoes Unleashed.
Yeah, excellent. You know your memes. Well
So what's the... I got 2 questions. The first question is, what's the potatoes reference and how did it get attached to that? And I'll let you answer that first.
The UK community has an unhealthy obsession with vegetables, and every card for some time has had a vegetable nickname attached to it. This goes back deep into Slack history. That's been long since been deleted, so I can't really tell you why. But yeah, potatoes, potential. That's it.
Okay, and then my second question was, I've been seeing this deck a lot, off and on, and I wanted to know: is it a tier 1 deck? Is it something that we should expect, or is this just something that you're having a little bit of fun with?
Yeah, it's no CTM. It's not. So for me, a tier 1 deck needs to be resilient to hate. This is not resilient to hate. It's a very good deck against certain types of decks and against people who haven't played against it before, but it wouldn't hold up if it was the number 1 deck. People would attack against it and learn how to play against it, and it would die off quite quickly. But it is fun.
Yeah. So it kind of seems like that's kind of the theme with Jinteki net damage decks. They're generally just meta decks that they do well in a certain frame of reference, but the more popular they get, the easier it is to hate against them.
That's true. I think the Potential Unleashed is extremely powerful ability, and without Strike, so Strike is a significant impact on it, but without Strike, it is incredibly easy to mill, much easier than I thought it'd be to mill the runner. And
I guess
so it is powerful, probably more powerful than PE, I'd say.
And I guess there's not a great current. I guess you could play like Scarcity or something like that, but that doesn't really advance your game plan in other ways too much.
Yeah, so I've played around with currents, but static costs 2, and you don't really want to pay that. The new current that's come out might be okay. Your hand size reduced by 1. It's a martial law. I can't remember what it's called, but
is that
0? Which
is that like interdiction or something like that?
No, that's the runner one. But
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'll look it up.
And so Power Tap Andy, are you feeling pretty good about this deck at the moment, or?
Yeah, it's pretty good. So I've been playing for a while over here in the UK, and it's very, very, very good against CTM. You need a 1 Power Tap down and 1 Citadel down, and you effectively turn off their ability, and then you can harness the tags. Sometimes you can turn tags into money, right? With Siphon, you can just clear one of them and then get paid to remove the other one. And it's also clickless, so it's a clickless tag removable that you get paid for, which obviously in this meta is quite powerful. And it's won a couple of store champs over here. Andy's kind of my first faction. I'll play it if it's the second best deck or better. I'll play Andy because I like it. But I thought it'd be good. I thought Jesse would play similar to his World decks, so that influenced my choices as well.
Okay. And Jesse, was there any like did you like specifically make any decisions for playing against Laurie, or did you just kind of play decks that you thought were just solid overall?
Yeah, not really. I try not to do that as much as I can. Not that I think Laurie made a bad decision because he probably was a lot more familiar with what I played at Worlds, and I had been very consistent in terms of what I had played. So thinking about that was definitely worthwhile. But I wasn't familiar with what Laurie played at Worlds, and certainly didn't know that he loved Andy. If I had, perhaps I would have factored that into my corp deck building decisions. But yeah, I just try and play what I think is strongest.
Sure. Did you have any? Did you have any like? Did you know that he was messing around with potential unleashed somewhat?
No, that's what I
Okay.
get for not watching previous games in the tournament.
Well,
I would have seen some net damage shenanigans happening, and maybe I would have had more.
Well, the thing
tech.
was, I don't think he played. He didn't play it in the last or against Alex. He didn't play it, but in the I think in the after discussion, him and Alex was very familiar with the fact that Laurie had been messing around with it quite a bit. So
Ah, there you go. The info was out there. I just didn't have it.
all right. Well, anybody have anything else to say before we start watching these games?
No, let's do it.
All right, cool.
No spoilers.
All right, so these will be a little different in the sense that if we wish to pause, we can.
Oh,
Cool.
So we've got some starting hands here. I'll go ahead and hit play. And how are you guys feeling about these starting hands?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think Jesse was Siphon Wiz. If I did think that, perhaps I would mulligan, but this is pretty solid. There's no money, but I've got traps. I think I'd probably keep it. It's not great.
yeah. I was a little conflicted about this hand. I like having Shore Gamble Faust because I figured that there would probably be some small, slightly annoying ice that I would have to deal with. And also, I would rather have the Fausts on the first turn where I can just play it and not have it sit in my hand or on top of my deck where it's more vulnerable. Although having both the Spooned in my hand was a big risk, and I, on reflection, probably should have mulliganed this for that reason, because Spooned is very important against Jinteki with DNA Tracker and other code gates. I think iKey is a code gate, which can be a little bit annoying. So, yeah, losing both of those would be very bad for my ability to compete in the long game, because I can't really just keep breaking DNA Tracker with only 2 Davids in the deck.
Okay.
So luckily I mulliganed and got a much better hand.
Yeah. So you
Well,
had
that
2
does-
celebrity gifts.
Yeah, that's a great hand. A
Yeah.
DNA Tracker, a Data Mine, and a Snare, and a House of Knives. It's like, I don't know if I could sculpt a better hand than that. So what about? So I obviously put the Data Mine on HQ. It's interesting. Yeah. So the DNA Trackers, like I have 2 of them, and it's my best ice. So I kind of want to hold that, and I'm not sure where to put it yet. I might make a remote. It'll probably go on R&D, but
I feel like a lot of these potential unleashed decks, they'll turn 1 install a House of Knives, or turn 2 or something like that. Do you do that a lot with Naked, or do you like to put it behind ice?
yeah, no, just chuck it out there. Normally is the way of the net damage decks. I've only got, I think I've got like 8 ice in this build, not many. So you don't really want to make a remote. So if they play Strike, then you probably make a remote. But it
Sure.
depends. Against Red Wiz, I'd be probably more likely to, because you can gear check them easier. But
So it looks like you
it's not.
put the snare out first.
Yeah, so I've shown this kind of net damage weirdness, right? I've shown him the House of Knives. I think I showed him the House of Knives on a snare, so
Yeah.
I think
So I just had to choose whether I thought it was the House of Knives. And I think the decision I made was that if I can get the Faust out of my hand, I don't care about the Paperclip, the Parasite, or the networking. So if I run into a snare, I would like to lose those 3, but ideally I'd like to hold on to at least one of the Spoons. And unfortunately I lost both the Spoons.
Yeah. My thinking is that House of Knives is such a good agenda for me to score. It has a lot of pressure to check because that's 6 net damage in PU.
Yeah.
I didn't see what that was.
That was the hostile infrastructure.
Cool.
Yeah. And yeah, that's exactly right. I can't afford to take all of the net damage from House of Knives, really.
Yeah, so here I'm paying 5 just to give him a net damage and take 1 off the stack because you just keep pinging. I don't need my money for much else, so I've got a rich start as well. So I'm happy to pay 5 for a net damage here, which seems expensive. It keeps the pressure on his hand side. He's only got 3 in hand. And he's already 33 cards in stack. It's only turn 3.
So do you have any, like, I mean, does it matter what you mill? Like, are you hoping to hit breakers, or are you just trying to run them out of deck for the most part?
Well, you're trying to run them out of deck. There's a knock lockdown, but that's mainly for Levy. So I'm not sure in this build whether I'm running any in the runs, but I tried that for a bit, but I think ultimately you just want to mill them down, and it tends to make people panic actually when they see all their. This is the random nature. They have no control over their stack, right? So Jesse's got a Faust, but so it's not quite as bad. But if you're on a normal breakers suite, it's a lot of pressure to see your code gate breaker to go in the bin, or to know that could happen. So Jesse, did you have an overall approach or strategy, or?
Yeah, I mean, my plan was I don't want to let you score House of Knives out of the remote. I want to try and stay reasonably high on money so that I can interact using my return from heat breakers if I need to. But also that I want to score agendas consistently from R&D, because that's generally my approach, pardon me, with PE as well, is that if you are consistently scoring agendas, you don't put pressure on yourself to the extent where you need to make runs where you're probably going to die. But unfortunately, it didn't really work out.
Yeah, I think you've made a couple of runs on R&D and not seen anything yet, which is unfortunate.
I guess was that a Hokusai that you put on R&D? I think.
Yeah, just a net damage waiting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think I also thought that ice was the DNA tracker on HQ.
Okay,
rather than the data mine, which makes putting the data mine there even better.
So
I guess, yeah.
I was gonna say, Laurie, did you stay above? I guess would you try to stay above 8 credits to kind of like to give the fear of the DNA tracker, or?
Yeah, that would have been. I'm not sure if I was thinking that, but that's certainly would have been wise to try and do that. So because once Jesse sees the snare, then he knows that there are no snares on HQ, and the House of Knives. Okay, so I like this. So this is kind of forking Jesse here. There's a DNA tracker and a Harpers grid. So he runs it. He's going to lose his whole hand just getting in there, right? So, or I score the House of Knives, and he loses his whole hand later on. So I like that play by myself. Yeah,
so you were pretty patient with the House of Knives then.
Yeah, well, it's really powerful, and he knew I had it, so I had to be careful with it. That's a problem with Slippery gifted. I mean, perhaps it's a strength sometimes as well, but. So I don't. Yeah, so I guess Justice decided not to run this remote, or he would have done it first click, most likely.
Yeah, I think particularly because I drew the Temujin, I sort of thought, well, I can get up on money. Then if I draw a medium, I can just try and score agendas. I mean, I know there's feedals and I know there's snares, but you've got to have some other agendas that don't hurt me as well.
Yeah. So there's 10 agendas. There's 3 foods, 3 fetals, 3 House of Knives, and a philotic. So try to keep it as. I think the foods are essential.
Yeah.
Of note,
so a lot of the time I just. Sorry, Greg.
I was just gonna say, of note, Jesse lost both Davids to the ability.
Yeah, that is significant, definitely. And I've got 6 net damage there now. Jesse's got 23 health points. So I think one thing this deck doesn't actually have that many of is traps. So with Strike especially, you're able just to run every remote and to clog the hand up with agendas.
And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think was there any strike in your deck, Jesse?
No.
So yeah, Jesse's got 16 cards now, so he might be, I don't know if you're panicking at this point, but you got 2 points, it's not terrible, I suppose, but yeah, so the House of Knives means you can't run it. Well, you can run. So now Snare kills you.
Yeah. And I think I just sort of thought, well, if that's another House of Knives in the remote, I just have to start scrying genders now.
Oh wow, fetal. So you live. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, so I thought that was GG because I saw the neural EMP the turn before, and I didn't realize you played it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I tend to play them straight away because you do the mill from the deck as well.
Yeah.
It's not worth saving. The same with the House of Knives counters. You just want to use them immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm looking for a neural here. So yeah, Data Mine's great in this deck. Let's go on R&D. Yeah, so this deck never scores out as well, which certainly stops it from being tier 1 as well, I'd say. But I'm just basically waiting for the runner to throw themselves at R&D until they die most of the time. Okay, so I'm going to score this House of Knives, which seems good as well. You're never getting that remote. Yeah, this makes sense, right?
It seems like the fetal and the GFI are pretty good in your hand as well, so you don't.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that doesn't leave much in R&D actually.
And the fact that House of Knives deters me from making multiple medium runs as well is really annoying. On this turn, I probably should have not drawn. Like, considering last turn I ran and would have died to snare anyway, I probably should have just said, well, I'll go. I mean, to be fair, once you have more medium counters, we got more likely to hit a snare. And since I had a near-death experience the turn before, maybe I was a little more scared of dying.
So I don't know if I shuffled the snares back in. Maybe I did actually with Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how many are in the bin, but we've seen two have fired anyway. But generally, you do want to draw up because you want to be able to score a fetal and take some net damage. But yeah, you need two agendas to win the game, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I think now I've got the I've had worse. I'm thinking, all right.
Yeah. So I remember that you started digging. It felt like to me, and I felt like that was a bit of a mistake, maybe because you're just limiting your life points if you have to discard. But I don't know if you're looking for something in particular.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe I misremember. We'll see. But so I left that House of Knives. That's something I like to do quite a lot. If I have an agenda in a remote and I feel like it's still safe, because I haven't scored at that turn, they're so unlikely to run. So you can I feel like I can shore up R&D there.
Yeah, I think on that turn I was thinking I want to be able to. I was assuming it's a DNA tracker on R&D. And I was trying to think of what the best approach for me was to be able to get in there multiple times. And it turned out not to be a DNA tracker, so all that thought process was incorrect anyway. I thought having a data sucker with a counter on it already would probably help me to have to spend the minimal number of cards to get through with Faust because I'd already lost both my Davids. And
Liz and Davids is massive.
Do you have any way to get back your David? Do you have like a retrieval run or anything? Or no deja vu?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really tough matchup for Jesse, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think I'd seen the DNA tracker and the maybe the data mine, but I had no idea what the rest of the ice was. So also, if it was a Kamainu, then.
Yeah, the opening celebrity gift had one data mine and one data tracker or DNA tracker.
So this is interesting. So you break the data miner from Mirati.
Yeah,
I was going to ask about that too. When I was watching the game, I was curious. Like, what did you think the benefit of breaking it over just letting it fire?
There may have been some card in my deck that I didn't want to lose at that point. Yeah. I can't remember.
So it does save you a mil, right? So if this is your last run, if this is like your last run on that R&D, then it makes sense.
Yeah, it may have been that I thought I'm going to run HQ next click, so I'm going to need to avoid R&D now anyway. I think I was just feeling the pressure of only having 3 cards left in my deck.
Yeah, you've almost got 1 run really, haven't you now? Maybe 2.
Maybe I want to draw the other 3 cards and then run the data mine and have it trash. I don't know. Yeah, so this is where I was sitting there thinking 8 credits. Okay, so if that's the DNA tracker on HQ,
yeah,
I'm pretty bummed.
Which she still should think it is, really, right?
Yeah,
like,
that was what I had penciled down as in my head.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think HQ must look quite tempting now as well, because I haven't been scoring really. I mean, it's got the 2 House and Knives, I suppose, but
yeah.
So if this is DNA tracker, I think you would die. But
yeah.
These data mines are quite funny. I've never played the card before. I'd searched on Jinteki for NetRunDB for net damage cards. This actually proved really good. Costing 0 is fantastic.
I was going to say, I think it's one of those ice that you run into and you're sort of like not ready to deal with it. Like you don't really know.
So there were 2 good cards, 2 very bad cards, and a neutral card for me in HQ, and I hit the neutral one. So I can't really complain about that.
Yeah.
So you have a very small chance of winning this game now. You have to go like 2 axes that are perfect. Can you get 2 axes?
Yeah, so I can draw the card and then run R&D, let the data mine fire, and not hit a snare. I think that's the only way I can win.
Yeah.
Except that now I can't because you have zero AP. So now I'm just dead. I can't get in anywhere.
Yeah.
So I just killed myself.
That's the only right way to go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that was sort of like that was the samurai way. Just
the honorable death. Yeah, I mean that's just a pretty tough matchup. Your cards go so fast, and you don't have any hate.
Yeah.
I got a nice one.
Lucky.
I had a really sweet opening as well with both the Celebrity Gifts and then DNA Tracker and House of Knives and the money to score it. It's great.
Yeah, it was certainly scary.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like a really bad matchup for Jesse, for sure.
I was testing Red Quiz a lot before Worlds, actually. And yeah, it was at the time Potential Unleashed came out, and I kept losing to it. It's a really hard match. Like, it's not so bad with Faust, but with the normal breakers, you have to draw. You normally have to draw your whole deck as regular wizard, as a Temujin wizard, to find your breakers. But obviously, you don't want to be doing that against a net damage deck. And you don't have Levy. You have Strike, which helps, definitely. But you have to find the Strike and hope it doesn't get milled.
All right, so we're going to head into game 2.
Well, talking about good starts, that's all right, isn't it? Sweet. Couple of bits of ice. Are you keeping that, Jesse?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Pretty happy.
I think I don't know what I'm doing. My mine's okay. So with as Andy, you don't have much draws, so Earthrise is fantastic. And also, I don't have any run economy, which actually isn't that bad a thing against Sync, especially if Sync keeps. You have to be careful, Andy, against some decks that you don't have like Temujin, Dirty Laundries in hand, and they ice all 3 centrals. Or often they'll ice 2 centrals, ice the archives on the next turn, and you can't fire it on the first turn off on a Zandy. It's missing a few key cards though. Also, Desperado.
Not having the Desperado or the testing in your opening hand makes look better than it is, I reckon.
Yeah.
Because they give you, the same thing. Desperado gives you the same thing as a short gamble, just over a bit of a longer period of time.
Yeah. So I do keep. Yeah, it's okay. I don't know. I feel like I can see my opening 4 clicks quite nicely. Maybe that's why I kept. And I know I don't think it's true. Yeah.
So when you see the sync, are you thinking 24/7 boom, or is there any other, is there any other sync builds that you're considering at this point?
No, I don't think so. I think the 24/7 boom. I haven't really seen much other sync since Worlds. Definitely what I'm fearing. So hard hitting news, and the early turns hard hitting news is the big problem because you need 12 credits to clear it. So you want to be able to stay either on 12 credits or on more credits than the court, so they can't beat the trace. Otherwise, you're going to be in tag land. So I remember when Jesse done this, I immediately felt under a lot of pressure and panicked and ran immediately, even though I can't really break anything.
And the data ward was a good draw for me because that's exactly where you want it, on the inside position on the remote, so you can put data ravens outside it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and it taxes them 3 the first time they run it.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd love to trust this Jackson, but I doubt I do. Or maybe I do. So it's one of those situations where if I trash it and he has hard in news, I get punished. But if I don't trash it, I might be so low on credits that he can use the Jackson to draw hard hitting news, and I get punished. So I was probably just working out the credits then.
So I could have gone credit, hard hitting news there, and gone down to 0, which wouldn't have been too bad considering that both the ice and my centrals cost 0.
Yeah, I couldn't clear right, so.
Yeah, I didn't have any tag punishment at that point, and I generally don't like tagging. I mean, I had the boom, but that would have taken me a couple of turns to get online, and I think by that point, with both the daily cast, Laurie would have been able to clear.
Yeah, so I think I would have bounced back quicker from that. I think I would have had to clear all but 1 tags, and then I guess you could flip and trash both casts, maybe. But yeah, you don't often want to sink all your money into the trace unless it's decisive.
Yeah. So I was at that point. I had the Sand, so what I wanted to draw off the Jackson was a breaking news. Especially once I had the closed accounts. Firstly, because I want to score breaking news as early as possible to turn 24/7 on. But secondly, because with a Sand, you can land a closed accounts in the same turn.
Yeah, and basically as a runner, I'm just terrified that any moment there'll be there'll be a breaking news at closed accounts. Trying to offshore my credits into resources or programs or check remotes where possible. But it's really hard to have enough money to check everything, to pressure.
And I pitched the GFI that turn, which may have been a mistake. I may have made 2 mistakes. First was pitching it. Second was worrying about removing the Jackson because I really wanted the Jackson, and I thought long and hard about letting Laurie have the GFI, considering that that's the agenda I want him to steal. But I also could have potentially trashed the hard hitting news, the 24/7 or the vanilla there. Probably the 24/7 or the vanilla, not the hard hitting news, considering our credits are still so close.
So I think I made 2 runs on HQ then. So I think I'm definitely worried about this remote and about what's in the remote. I suspect it's not a breaking news because the data war doesn't end the run, but I'm fully aware it could be a Sand.
So I've just seen you drop Paperclip, and I'm now worried about Siphon because of the 2 0-cost barriers on my essentials.
Yeah, I really like ditching Paperclip against NBN actually because it does make them worried about Siphon.
Yeah.
I mean, it's efficient anyway, but.
I do have the Sand, which is my favorite anti-Siphon card, but
yeah,
I still don't res here, I don't think.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I do, because I want to force you to spend the credits. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm on click. I've only got 2 clicks as well, so I can't Siphon and clear this turn.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so I don't want to pay 5, right? I don't want to go down low.
Yeah. So negative of doing that for me is that next turn I really have to have another piece of ice to put there. The positive is that it protects the boom, I guess. So perhaps that was wrong, and I shouldn't have resed, because I think the negative outweighs the positive.
Well, you did draw a Data Raven, so...
Yeah, but I don't really want to put that on HQ is the problem.
You probably want to put that over the Data Ward, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although 6 + 4 is 10, so having it on HQ is good, as long as I gain a credit here with my last click, which I hope I do. Because then I can res the Data Raven and the Sansan if he siphons me.
Probably ditch
that again. No, I don't. I still have vanilla.
So I think I might be more greedy then. I think I might put double vanilla on HQ, even though obviously it does nothing except for it. As far as I'm concerned, as the runner, I can't siphon. I don't have the tools. I mean, I do have passport, maybe, but I'm not high in credits. I don't know. I'd really want the Data Raven on top of the Data Ward.
Yeah.
So I just get rich. So I think I will try and leave some money on Temujin. Yeah, I don't want to take it all off. Probably 8, in case I do get close accounts. Yeah,
so I've got agendas that I don't want in hand.
Yeah, you really want to breaking news, right?
Yeah, and that's sort of without a breaking news or a QPM. At that point, I'm feeling like my game plan is not really progressing as I want it to.
So you go for is that the NAPD in the remote?
Yeah.
So what's the thinking here? Were you playing and scoring it, or just?
I figured I can conceivably score it with Sansan next turn, which is an agenda, and the plan is score 2 agendas. So that gets me halfway to my game plan. The ideal was that you wouldn't have Siphon.
So yeah, you correctly put the right ice on HQ. I would have got Siphon now. So you raised this, right? What? I wonder what you're thinking about.
I'm thinking about whether to raise the Data Raven or the Sansan.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because you've got 18, so the Data Ward is not really doing much.
Right, I remember this turn, yeah. Yeah, I remember this turn. I thought that the outside ice on the remote was a Data Raven, so I was trying to get you down low on credits. I didn't actually want to siphon because I wanted to check the remote, and I wouldn't have enough clicks. So you do rest the Sansan. Yeah, so then I could siphon hit for 6, but it's not worth it because I want to check the remote and I have to pay 6 to clear them against sync. So again, I'm just terrified about breaking news. That's what I'm trying to do in the early game. Stay out of hard hitting news range and try and stem all breaking news, close accounts plays.
Yeah, and I think the problem for me with a turn like this is that I just don't have the cards to recover, and you've still got a Temujin with 12 credits on it. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty bad. I've basically got to draw 2 breaking news in the next 2 turns that you don't see on R&D, and that's the only way I can win.
Yeah, I remember feeling that your draw was really unfortunate, and the fact that you didn't really draw breaking news early in the game, which is kind of it seems like it can be pretty crucial to the sync game plan.
Yeah, you either want breaking news or QPM or Astro, and I to be fair, I think it was a change that I made also that hurt me. They're putting the NAPD in over the Beal. I tried that out here. That was that and the Data Ward were the 2 changes I made from the Worlds list. And I think, if that was the Beal in hand, I would have been in a much better position because I could have just scored it off the Sansan next turn, not worried about having to install it and just gone for credits instead.
Because as long as you can get a breaking news and 1 other agenda scored,
you can combo off.
Yeah, and Laurie, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't have a Plascrete, so...
No, but I've got Citadel Sanctuary, so that that prevents me damage. It's not as good as Plascrete, but... Sure, yeah. Yeah, so I don't see my Citadel for quite a while, actually.
I think it comes later.
Yeah, so my out once there's a Citadel is really only to 24/7 closed accounts, trash the Citadel Sanctuary, and hope that my opponent doesn't gain free and clear a tag, which they're probably going to.
So if you can get this remote is, if you get Data Raven on this remote, it's pretty terrifying for me. It's not something I can feasibly run.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a possible win for you as well.
So I got rid of both EOIs here with the hope of shuffling them back in later, just because I feel like I need the other cards more.
Yeah, I remember that actually, and it's interesting how things runners might interpret things differently. But I remember seeing that and thinking, "Well, you must be flooded." And there you go. There's a legwork because I thought with 2 EOIs discarded, they're very good cards. And also we're quite late in the game now as well. We've only seen one agenda.
I remember this. Yeah. I remember this legwork because, if I'm not mistaken, you miss the boom and the GFI. So it was like the two things that you could have actually done something about. You missed them.
Yeah, I think that's right. And power tap here, I'm a little bit annoyed about with Data Raven because it helps to mitigate the trace. But I start getting more annoyed about it once the Citadel Sanctuary comes down because it basically blinks Data Raven completely.
Yeah, so I'd probably draw here looking for the Citadel. If I'm clever, and then I can install it last click rather than clear now, but we'll see. Also, it's quite tempted to run R&D here because Jesse's got 1 credit actually, so but I have to clear, so I can't install medium.
I like how this Andy deck, it's sort of like it's got the criminal like early aggression that puts a lot of pressure on your opponent, but then with the Citadel and the power taps, it also adds sort of a late game, sort of like inevitability.
Definitely, yeah. I play this more like Shaper sometimes. It's more like you either remote lock or you control the board, and you use Siphon to assist you with that as long as you possibly can. And then once the agenda density is so high, you just slap down medium and hit R&D. Mm-hmm. So you either do that when you have nothing else, you have no board left to clear up, or you do that when you feel like you're about to lose. Is do the medium play. So here I'm starting to think, well, I've got control of this game. I'm going to start poking R&D, see how feasible this medium is. Because there's still many ways I can lose this game, but it's worth me. And Jesse hasn't got much money either as well, right? So it's definitely worth putting him under pressure.
Yeah, I think at this point in the game's still it's very close.
Yeah, without the meat damage protection, I definitely still have an out, and with only single accesses on R&D.
Yeah, and I do have that Arcus Imogen. Yeah, my money is running out. Yeah, so until I get a Citadel, the clearing the tag is very taxing still. It's 3 credits and a click, right? So I can't really run these centrals.
And I spent a turn there gaining 2 and installing the Data Raven, which is kind of interesting because I still felt like that Data Raven Data Ward remote was my best out because I hadn't seen the Citadel yet. And I did that immediately because I didn't want to pitch any of the other cards in my hand because I thought they were too important. Ideally, I could have waited another turn and gained 3 that turn, then hedge funded the following turn. But I think putting myself the turn behind there was not good.
Yeah. So with Sync, it's often difficult with managing your hand, right? Because you have so many good combo cards. You often have to make plays like that.
Yep. And then when I draw the sweepstake, and they had 3 cards, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah, I remember thinking that was kind of awkward because it was like you'd love to play the sweeps into the hedge if you had the full hand.
Yeah, it's probably. I'm probably thinking, I really want to draw, but I don't want to draw. So I would definitely try and play around that sweep because I still on top of R&D. So is that the food in the remote? Yeah, again, I'm terrified it's breaking news, so I run it.
And yeah, probably shouldn't have res there. Probably should have let you just pay for it.
I actually remember thinking, I was happy when you went down to 0. Because you obviously can't score. Gives me a turn to deal with that, or to prepare for it. I guess it does look a lot less like an agenda as well if you can't actually score it, if you don't have, like if you make that play without enough credits to score.
Yeah.
Select testing is great there. So that gives me an economy and forces you to ice archives.
Yeah.
Because my economy is quite weak now without that.
Yeah, and with
So
7
you think
ice,
this is
I was just gonna say with 7 ice already installed, MBN's not likely to have a whole lot of ice left.
no. So do you think you ever would advance that? Oh, you do score that food, I think, Jesse, don't you? Do you think you would?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did score it.
Pretty safe there, isn't it, really?
Yeah. I just... it's tough. Like, again, I have to score 2 agendas to win. Now that you've got medium, it's less likely I'm going to find 2 breaking news. I'm hoping that you run HQ and hit that QPM, but I have to find 1 breaking news myself somehow. I don't know.
There's the Citadel. Yeah, so that it's just got worse and worse, hasn't it? Now the Citadel's there, and you're medium locked. It's very difficult to win from here. You haven't seen any break.
I just have to say, well, I have to score 7 points now. It's a bit harder. 3 is a good start.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm doing as well, actually, is I'm taking tag every time I run R&D. I really would like to avoid that, but I can't really pay the Gutenberg trace. But what that does is it turns on QPM, so that is another help for Jesse if I hit a QPM. So 2 mediums is better than 1 here, so I install a second one.
Yeah. And because I know that there's a QPM left in my deck, this is both Jacksons get trashed here, I think. It's very unfortunate.
That's horrible, yeah. Do you have archive memories?
No. So now I know I can't get back my AOIs, which is a big problem.
Yeah, and I know that as well, right? So that's great. And 1 boom's down, so I know if I find the other boom, you can't kill me. Your outs are pretty much scoring, but
so I think I put the data raven there so that you can't just pay the Gutenberg trace to avoid turning on QPMs.
Yeah, and I can only kill 1 tag with sister, right? So 2 tags because I have to pay 3 every time. So that indeed still quite taxing.
Yeah, I think the Citadel Sanctuary power tap just gives that little edge, an extra click here, an extra credit there, that when you have it every time, it's just far too much for me to pick up with.
Oh, it's huge, yeah, definitely. Like, it saves me a click and 3 credits every turn. And it also doubles as meat damage protection.
Yeah.
How many times have you used the Citadel for meat damage?
Not too much, actually.
You don't ever use it though, right? Because they don't play the cards if it's in play.
Yeah.
yeah, that's just a good point.
It's just a deterrent.
Yeah.
I have used it before because I remember losing my whole hand, and because it discards your whole hand as well, so it's incredibly annoying now if I draw the second Citadel, because I can never ever install it. Well, unless it actually trashes it. Yeah, so this game now is all but over. I think it's pretty hard.
Yeah, there's still another 2 GFIs, the Astro, and all 3 breaking news in there.
Yeah. A lot of agendas in R&D at this point.
Which ideally for me, I get into the situation where I've got more in my score area, which is good generally, but also because it reduces the ones that you can actually steal. Yeah, and I don't want the QPM in my hand, I want the QPM in the deck.
And with medium, you need to clear these medium counters so you can draw fresh cards. Currently, you're not seeing any fresh cards, right? But then, because I've got 2 medium counters and R&D isn't that taxing, I mean, I can probably run twice in a turn and maintain the lock. And you have no way of getting out of that because you have no Jackson. So, other than making R&D more and more taxing, but you haven't got the ice
or the credits to do that. Yeah.
So another, if you had a data ward on R&D now, you'd have a much better shot.
Yeah.
So you still haven't scored this food. Well, I guess there's no need, right? It's a bit. I'm never running there. Well, maybe that's not true. But to me, it looks like a QPM. I think.
Right. Yeah. And it, like, from your perspective, if it wasn't Astro or breaking news, I would have just scored it on one of the previous.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
I do remember considering. Actually, is it the most? Is it extremely greedy breaking news? But I thought that was very unlikely.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe those plays a good play sometimes though, because they're not to be expected.
Yeah, and if it was, then I could potentially go score Trash Citadel Sanctuary and boom.
Yeah, definitely.
But alas, it was not.
Yeah, to make that play, you have to have drawn one of your 3 breaking news in the top 30 cards. So,
Yeah, when you're on 0 credits as the co-op and the runner has 19 credits, it's not very good. And 2 mediums.
Yeah. Yeah, this wasn't the best game in that run, I don't think. It was the opening was quite exciting and interesting, but it quite quickly just became. Sometimes you do get them games where it's just medium digging until you find the agendas, and there's not a lot the core could do.
Yeah,
because it's such a good card. Yeah, turns out.
Yeah.
Now this is me trying to shortcut the power tap tag business. Confusing the issue.
Yeah, I think we all just got confused what we were shortcutting and what we weren't. It's all good.
That tends to happen on JNet. You start to make shortcuts, and then it's kind of like lose track.
Yeah, so in the next, there's only 14 cards left in my deck, and 1, 2, 5 of them are agendas that you can steal. One of them is an agenda for me, but it doesn't really do much having another QPM at this point. It's not the best.
Yeah, I was going to say install the QPM in that, right? It's about the only play you can make there, isn't it? That isn't Purge, or at least it makes me think. I do remember thinking as well, actually, like the odds of it being a breaking news that you've had in hand all this time are so low.
Yeah.
I did wonder what it was because, as far as I've trashed with the Jacksons, and there's not many things it can be.
No, and if I was on 3 or 4 points instead of, if I was on 4 or 5 points instead of 3, then it's a lot scarier. Because then if it's an Astro, it's a lot more good.
Definitely.
As it is, it's not really.
Yeah, so I probably know as what you've had in hand for a very long time because I've seen R&D. So I guess I can probably read it's a QPM. But... Do you think Sync is not? How playable do you think Sync is now on the Lambs out, Jesse?
Yes, I think it's a lot worse now that On the Lamb's out because, as you could see in this game, I was really relying on the 24/7 to be able to get back into the game once your economy was going. And the fact that, this game it was turned off by the fact that I didn't have the breaking news, but if I went to all the effort to score the breaking newses and then have the combo ready and you just had an On the Lamb, it's the same result. We'd end up back here again.
Yeah.
So...
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
That's pretty amazing that you're down to 10 cards in R&D and neither one of you has seen a breaking news at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I'm going to see like 5-6 cards next run. So
a lot.
I think the odds are high that I win.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard, Jesse, to when you're in a losing position like this and it has that inevitability to it. Do you find it hard to focus? Because there's players like Dave Hoyland that never ever seem to give up, and that's something I admire. I'm not sure that I quite have. Certainly not to the extremes he takes it. Like, he's extremely good at that. He's never giving up.
I still always play to my outs. Like, I mean, outing archives there.
Yeah, but that's what made me think of actually. I was like, yeah. What more can you do? But yeah.
But it's very rare that you get into a situation this bad where, pretty much all the cards in your hand and all the cards in your deck don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's playing to your outs is, you always just got to take that last line, no matter how small of a probability that it comes through.
Yeah. And they're the best, some of the best wins as well, when you win from behind, but you took the time to think of your one out, and your opponent's obviously upset and annoyed, but you're like, well, yeah, I thought about my only one thing I could do, or perhaps evaluate it against a couple of other things I could do, and it feels good making that decision, getting it right.
Yeah, and I think that it's one of the things that makes Netrunner such a great game is that no matter how far behind you are, there's always a path to victory. It might be a very narrow path, but it's there. And if you continually play correctly, you're going to pull out those slim wins more than anybody else. So.
And there were definitely, watching the game back, there were a couple of turns where I went really low on credits. That set me back sort of 2 or 3 turns into the future. And Laurie did draw the Citadel Sentry quite late. And if I had managed to play a little faster, then it's potentially I could have had some things online before that. I mean, we know that the breaking news was right at the bottom, so that probably wasn't going to happen. But I could have drawn another Jackson. Anything could have changed to speed my game up a little bit if I had played slightly differently. So while I got to a point where I really did have no outs on that last turn, and there was nothing I could do, I think there were still things I could have done earlier to play to my outs a little better. Yeah.
Sure, and I think that, and kind of like along with what you were saying, there was times when he was very vulnerable for a long period of time, so that if you get the cards that you need, you could definitely kill him. It just, unfortunately, you didn't draw him, so...
I think maybe with hindsight, like you said yourself, Jesse, you didn't have the tools to punish the remote you're building. So you invested a lot of resources into that remote, but it didn't do much for you other than slow you down because you didn't have the breaking news. But perhaps, like you said, you could have sped up with trying to find that breaking news rather than. It's hard to know though, right? You can't guess what's coming up. Well, you can guess, but you don't know what's coming up.
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake was actually not letting you have the GFI early. And I felt that at the time. It's one of those things where you go, oh, I really should have just left that. Because having that live Jackson behind the data ward, you weren't going to come in and trash that. And it's like a Sensi, at that point. It's like,
it's huge, right?
At CTM.
Yeah. I really want to trash it, but
yeah.
It took me six to trash to get in there and trash it. My economy wasn't strong enough at the point. Yeah.
And if you had trashed it on that turn you accessed it, I drew the hard-hitting news anyway, and that would have made it a much easier call for me.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was a good game.
Yep. Tough matchup again for you.
Yeah, good games, guys. And so, Laurie, you're going to advance to the finals.
Cool.
Where you're going to get to face the reigning champ, Noah McKee.
Yeah. Should be good.
Yeah, you got any thoughts on the finals matchup?
It should be quite interesting.
Weight of representing the rest of the world.
No problems. I mean, Noah's put me at Worlds, so I'm hungry for some revenge. I think as Noah and me both changed our decks quite a lot, and also looked at what our opponents were playing. So I think there'll be some interesting deck choices, maybe. So that'd be part. The game will start. It started already, perhaps. That'd be interesting. But yeah, I'll try and represent England and beat Noah.
Well, we've got let's see, so you'll be returning UK representative. I guess Alex was last time, so UK's showing up pretty strong. It's good.
Yeah, well, best semester in the world, UK. Everyone knows that. So, no doubt.
It's funny because like 2 years ago, we thought you guys were a bunch of jokers.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's the American spirit, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Basically, no, it was like.
How could anyone else be good at the game?
Well, there
Yeah,
was
go on.
a period where all the deck lists that were coming from Europe were just like, come on, like
Well-
that's just not gonna win over here. But
Well, we're not in Europe anymore, so
yeah, oh, that's true. You just gave the fuck you to Europe, so
sure. Moving away from politics, I'm looking forward to proving that the UK is better than the West Coast because it's a clear fact. It needs to be proved.
well, yeah. Let's talk about that for a second. So after this top deck's over, after we have the finals, we're probably gonna take a little bit of break because my wife's pregnant and she's about to burst, so I'm gonna be busy for a little bit. But we are talking about doing a UK versus West Coast USA showdown. I think that will be pretty awesome. We are talking about using the sort of the StarCraft style, which is the team kill format. So that should be pretty exciting. Are you guys putting together your UK dream team?
Yeah, I haven't really talked about it much, but team kill, that sounds like fun. What does that mean?
So
Yeah, it sounds really aggressive.
Yeah.
So basically, the way it works is that you have you have 4 players, I guess, on each team, and you play one match at a time, and whichever player wins stays, and the first team to have all their players loses. So potentially, you could have one player from one of the teams beat the entire team, or you have scenarios where, let's say UK, the first 3 players lose, and then the last player goes 4-0.
Last man standing.
So
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it creates this like really unique scenario where you can have these amazing sort of like comebacks. Like for anybody that has watched like professional StarCraft in the past, the 1v1 format was a little more, the players were lauded a little more because it was kind of like more respectable to win. But the team matches were always the most exciting because it just doesn't get any better than they call it an all kill when one person beats the entire team. So
That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think once we do that, it'd be nice to do that. I like the regional aspect of it, so maybe we can do an Aussie team at some point. And I think these are more like showcase like matches rather than like a tournament. Just like where every now and then we'll do sort of like spotlight features on like certain metas against certain metas. Because I think that there's just a lot of, I feel like each area has sort of like their own flavor. Like I really like the way that the Netrunner meta, the world meta has gone. Is that, a couple years ago it was more like, I don't know. I feel like some of the metas weren't like as respected, and it was like this and that. But now it seems like everyone's sort of got their own like distinct personality and styles, and they're all good. So that's exciting.
Yeah, it makes Worlds a lot better when it's actually Worlds, and there's people from all over the world coming and bringing their different decks. I think 2014, the first time I came, was really the start of that because you had come from Belgium and make it all the way to second with a PE deck that most people thought wasn't really viable. But at the time, exactly what you were saying earlier, Greg, people were saying, oh, there's all these crazy PE deck lists coming out of Europe. Why is everyone playing feedback filter? What's going on? They're all mad.
Yeah.
And then, Min came second, and people were like, wow, okay, we do have to respect that. We have to respect different ways of playing the game that aren't just the way we do. So that's cool.
And I think the Americans were like, because the size of our tournaments were so much larger that we sort of assumed like, all right, like of course, like occasionally some like outliers are going to win when the metas are real small. But now, the metas are getting, I don't know, they're sort of evening out, I guess. Like we've got actually the UK has some of the biggest tournaments of anybody. So, yeah, it's certainly become Worlds is Worlds. There's and yeah, actually we're getting our ass kicked. I mean, when you look at the top 16, USA has fallen behind. So
excellent. We'll try and keep you there.
Yeah.
We'll team up with the Australians, I think, for the Queen.
That's right. Commonwealth pride.
So, let's talk a little bit about, I guess, store champs and sort of like the tournament season that is upon. It's a little strange because before usually we'd be waiting on the tournament season, and now it's kind of like it's already sort of happening some places, but not in others because it's more spread out. But are you guys expecting a most wanted list sometime soon, or do you think that that's going to come after the store champs?
It's interesting because I think FFG ideally would have liked the last 2 packs to be legal for Worlds by the looks of the way the metagame's shaken out, that you had 16 NBN decks in the top 16 of Worlds, and that was a problem. But I think the last 2 packs really addressed a lot of the power of the oppressive cards, particularly hard-hitting using 24/7, and by proxy CTM and Sync. Not that those cards still aren't good, particularly hard-hitting news and CTM. I think they will still be dominant plays in the meta and may still warrant MWL attention, but there's a strong argument for let's just see how the meta plays out with the impactful answers that we've got in martial law and Citadel Sanctuary in intervention as well.
Right. So last year when we got the first MWL, it came after a full cycle in a big box and right before the first pack in the next cycle. So I wonder
I think we're more on the 6 monthly timeline though.
You think it's more of a time thing than where we are in the cycle kind of thing? Because I've heard some.
I think we're likely to see one 1st of January or thereabouts, an update of some sort. Whether it's a big update or not, I don't know.
See, I agree. That's what I felt, but I've heard others say that they think it's more likely to come after the end of the current cycle and before the Red Sands, but.
There is a bit argument for that, right? Because they design the cycle together and test it together for this cycle. And what Jesse's saying does make a lot of sense about how CTM and MBN dominated Worlds, but there's been a lot of hate in the last 2 packs that has severely affected that. Like we had a sort of store champs the other day, there was no CTM at all. There's lots of different reasons for that, but I think the new cards are definitely a part of that. And I don't really know that we need an NWL update at the moment. I think maybe let's the other cycle settles, and I do think Corps need another win condition maybe. I mentioned before about Rumour Mill and I don't like it, but I feel like perhaps a few more strategies or strengthen ones that we already have for the Corp, because I've tried lots of different Corp decks and they all feel very underpowered compared to the runners at the moment, and it is quite hard to find a tier 1 Corp deck that isn't MBN. And now that's been hampered by the new cards. So,
sure. And another thing that to go along with what you were saying about how I can't actually, I don't remember which one you said it, but somebody said something about how they balance the cycle as a whole.
Yeah.
So, that would mean that there's cards that were in the apparently, like Damon has said before, there's like a 6 months sort of like free zone, or like a card won't get put on the MWL until it's had like a decent amount of testing. So you could also maybe argue that there's cards at the end of I guess it'd be the Mumbad cycle that haven't hit that point yet. So maybe that'd be another reason why they wouldn't do a MWL, because
there are a lot of cards that hadn't hit that point when the last update was made in July or August or wherever it was, that could potentially get attention this time around.
Sure.
Particularly if the designers and developers, Damon knows what is coming in the next little while and foresees issues arising, potentially with Bioethics Association or IG cards. We could potentially see some of those going on MWL, because that does seem to be the direction that the metagame is heading with the demise of GT.
So we will be interested to see if Prism rises, Prism decks continue to. There's been a bit of a ripple, a bit of an uptake with the HP Operation Friends and High Places. It's made people play Prism a lot more, and it's obviously a style of deck that people haven't enjoyed and it's got a lot of negative attention. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out and how it does affect MWL decisions. But I think currently, waiting and see how the cycle shakes out. If you were going to do a change now, I'd do a small one. I'd probably take Eli off just to give the corpse a little bit of a boost, but without changing too much. And I'd probably ban Room Mill, but whatever. That's just me.
Well, I think Eli not only would give the corpse a boost, but it gives HB probably a much needed boost.
Yeah, it's just a nice all-round good card, and it was when it was put on the MWL, it was in every corp deck, and I can understand why it's put on there, but it's just it's been depowered by paperclip.
Well,
massively.
Wasn't it also like the main issue was that you just shoved it in NBN Fast Advance? That was the big issue, and so NBN Fast Advance is pretty much dead. And you could almost argue
it's very hard to build. To be honest, I think not having Eli is a big issue because it stops corps from being proactive. It deprives you of the ability to compete in the early game, threaten to score agendas, but also have reasonably affordable ice that ends the run. So now that you don't have Astro, you can't chain it. I think Eli is an excellent piece of ice to allow corps to be a little bit more aggressive. It would be good to have back in.
Well, what about, do we feel the same way about Architect, or is Architect just a little too strong?
I think Architect's probably slightly over the curve. I don't mind that being 1 point of influence for HB. But for having Architects of Tomorrow, the ID, have to pay 3 influence for Eli feels like a big kick in the teeth when it only has 12 influence to start with.
That's true.
Yeah. And they that to me speaks a little bit of the slight inelegance with the MWL list. It penalises the wrong people sometimes. It's almost like Eli should have been 2 influence maybe 3 influence rather than cost HP and influence. And I'm sure I've heard it said many times before, but like Desperado being on the MWL isn't great for Criminal when they were a very underpowered faction. They were getting penalised for other factions playing that card.
Sorry, you made me think of Temujin, because if they put Temujin on the most wanted list, it just totally screws Criminal.
There is a very fair argument for that on the runner side. I mean, it's ubiquitous. It's played in all 3 factions.
So could we see a potential scenario where it's the first card that gets an influence errata, where it costs 1 more influence for everybody except for Criminal?
I think that's the best solution for Eli, and it's probably the best solution for Temujin, but it does run counter to the philosophy of the MWL and make it quite confusing for people building decks, so probably not.
That's the counter argument. It's much more confusing if you have several different rules, but they've kind of already done that. They have multiple errata now, and they have multiple unique errata, like Museum of History, and they've done it very good. So.
Is it any more confusing than limiting like Astro 1 per deck or something like that? Like, to me, it doesn't seem.
It's not really.
It's kind of like there's a line where like you care about these things, and once you like surpass that line, sort of like the complexity issue is kind of a non-issue. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you've already got a document you have to refer to, right? You like I now when I build my decks, I always do them online and on Netrun DB, and the influence, often I can't think of it just immediately out of my head, depending on some various combinations that you have of cards, because and the limit 1 per deck, it's already like a little bit tricky, and you do need a point of truth already. So like you say, maybe we've already got that complexity, so we may as well use it.
Yeah, and it was almost like when the first Most Wanted list came out, there was sort of like this dialogue from FFG that was like, this is for competitive play, casual play can still continue to ignore this, and blah, blah, blah. But that didn't happen. Like, you go to any GNK or meetup, and everybody's conforming to this list. So, obviously, like, people are smart enough, and into the game enough to where like it's not an issue. You know what I'm saying? Like it kind of seems like they approach it like it might create this like division between casual and competitive, but really the casual community, despite maybe not being as like into the competitive scene, they still follow whatever rules FFG puts forward.
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I think you do have to be careful not to make it too complicated to new people. And you don't want to. I've heard stories of I didn't play Game of Thrones first edition, but I've heard stories of them having multiple pages of banned lists and multiple combinations of cards that weren't allowed. And I got the impression from people that played the game that it had gone too far, and it just became a bit of a mess, really.
I could see that, but is that more of an issue than, say, like the cost barrier of entry that like Netrunner has at the current moment? Like the fact that they put rotation off so far that now it's like $500 to buy into the game.
I think that's a different argument. I think like they're different things that don't affect each other, and you can't say people can't afford to play Netrunner, so that it doesn't matter if we make it complicated because they won't join anyway. But I mean, coming back to the beginning, I do think that they should be more creative with how they use the MWL and have more instances where they don't just make it MWL, they errata it or they ban it. I'm fine with that. I just think I think they should definitely go down that path. I just think they should do it slowly if they do it. But I think Damon's hasn't, from what I've heard and speaking to him and other people have spoken to me, it seems like he has his opinion on things, and I think we'll stay with that for a while with the MWL. So we'll see how it pans out.
Well, one thing that I've been like kind of noticed is that everything that Damon's done, I've been pretty okay with. There's been nothing that he did that really like I have a great argument against. But then when you hear him talk, like I get worried because it sounds like things are going to end up worse than they end up. So it's kind of like I don't know. Some of the things that he says publicly worry me, and then he ends up doing, by my estimation, what is like not too bad. Like it seems like pretty decent. So I at this point, I kind of trust him.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to put a lot of faith in the game designers. I think they're clever people than us, and they've got more experience of designing games than us, and they probably know a lot more about what's coming in Netrunner.
That's true. When they make these lists, they have.
We have to trust them.
Yeah, when they make these lists, they have knowledge that we don't. We only have, we have incomplete knowledge. So.
And in terms of public statements, like Damon has a lot of constraints on him in terms of what he can talk about with spoilers and with other factors that go into how decisions are made that he might not necessarily be able to make public. But if he's making the right decisions at the end of the day, most of the time, then that's really all we can ask for.
Yeah, and the game's still great. It's still fun. The meta's just really diverse at the moment. Certainly locally, there are lots of decks that work out there. They may not all be tier 1, but there is a lot of stuff you can do with Netrunner, a lot of fun you can have, and there's lots, and that goes all the way through to Worlds all the way down. So, I'm generally happy with where Netrunner is.
I completely agree. I hope that there's some kind of recognition that what happened in the Moonbat cycle really kind of pumped the brakes on the growth of the game, and that we don't hit that again, because that was, I don't know. I feel like we're in a good place now, and we've been in a good place for a while, but we're still feeling the negative effects of things that happened 9 months ago.
Yeah, it's pretty hard, though, for a new developer to come on and say the last cycle that my predecessor designed was bad, and it was bad for the game.
Certainly.
And publicly admonish him.
Yeah, and I'm not taking Damon to task for that by any means. I'm just saying that it's something that I think needs to be recognized, that we need to avoid that. Hopefully, it's.
Yeah, so it's hard though, right? Because I mean, I'm sure when Lucas designed the Moonbat cycle and assets, so I guess we're talking about assets and how powerful they are, right? Is that what you're talking? And then how that led to prison decks. Is that what you mean when you say the negative impact? And,
yeah, I mean,
because some people did leave the community, and I because of that. I would argue that some of those people might have left anyway. But also from the designer's point of view, they designed that. They thought that'd be fun. They were trying for something, and they may have missed. But I guess my point is that it's not it's not always easy to stop that happening. It's not necessarily something they can do to stop that happening again.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not. I think that, I don't know, it might have hit different places in different ways, but I mean, there's a lot of people that have said that their metas went from like slowly increasing to just like plummeting in like a 3-4 month period. And the thing that was weird about it was that asset spam decks were pretty popular, like in a fringe way, like, and when they became sort of the norm is when it actually became a huge problem.
Yeah, I mean, it became a situation where if you didn't have particular cards in your runner deck, you just couldn't compete when you weren't even in the game. And that's when it becomes not fun. At the moment, whatever you bring, you've got a fighting chance. You might not be particularly resilient to a certain type of hate card, but certainly as a runner, I think if you play any of the decks from the three main factions, you are in with a decent shot. You can get your breakers out. You can make a few runs. You might not be successful. Whereas in that metagame, it just felt like, oh, I'm sitting down opposite IG. I don't have particular hate cards in my deck. I'm just dead.
Sure, and I think that maybe the lesson from that is that at the core of the game, people want like the traditional things that we think of as Netrunner to be the meat of the game, and that anything that falls outside of that to be sort of niche and maybe effective in certain scenarios, but not like the dominant decks. Like,
I think Damon said that publicly. Damon said that he wants runs to be at the center of the game. He designed Temujin Contract as a pushed, powerful card that centered around runs, and you have to make successful runs to make it work. And I think his words, but also his actions and the cards that he's designed in this cycle that do revolve around making runs.
And I do think Temujin has a good card as well on that point. I think it's a well-designed card, and I do like the way it works. Perhaps it is played too much, but
and the counterplay for the co-op, is to have more ice.
Yeah, and it's very interactive as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that the game's the healthiest when that's sort of like the core of the game, but I love that there's also these rogue decks that are still competitive. Like decks like DLR and Diaper and stuff like that, and even maybe even sideways decks like acid spam decks or decks like IG49. Like, these are cool decks, and it's great that they are competitive, but it's that fine line of like, once they become the dominant deck, it really turns people away for some reason. But the good news is it's been really good. I mean, like, I feel like I'm sort of talking negative. I'm not trying to be negative. The game's been in a great spot. Like, I'm totally enjoying it. I've been telling everybody who left, like, come back. It's like, it's better than it's better than it's been in a long time, I think. So, and we got rotation coming up, so that's going to be bonkers. I mean, who knows what the hell's going to happen once rotation hits. I feel like it's going to get crazy.
Yeah, good. It should be fun. The Red Sand cycle as well looks pretty crazy. Some of the cards I've seen. I think it's on the power level. It's definitely gone up. And some quite new strategies as well, like waiting faster rounds, for instance.
Yeah, and I think I think that we may. I don't know. With Temujin, like, it's interesting card because it really did help the game in a lot of ways, but it may be too, like you said, it's too played. Too many factions are just splashing it nonstop. But if they MWL it becomes like criminal, takes a big hit.
Take Desperado off. I don't want -6 influence on my Andy ID.
See, they won't. Yeah, they won't take Desperado off. I mean, I don't. From what Damon says, he's not going to ever take Desperado off.
Yeah.
Well, it's these tiny things, right? If Temujin was 3 influence, I think it would be fine.
It would be totally fine.
Definitely.
And
I agree. And that'd be the most elegant solution, I think, really, in terms of what would be best for balance and deck building.
So my opinion on MBN, and this would be like a strictly just post Worlds before the end of the cycle hits, was that if they make breaking news one per deck, it fixes a lot of the problems with like EOI and close accounts and stuff like that. But I don't know if that's true anymore now that there's a little more like there's some hate cards that people can play. Maybe if we redid Worlds at the end of this cycle, maybe NBN wouldn't be the best, but I kind of feel like it still would be. So I don't know.
Yeah, it probably still would be. But it might be a bit more balanced, and that is the danger about complaining about the current metagame, right? Because you don't know what's coming up, and they obviously, as Jesse said, they probably intended for the last 2 packs to be illegal at Worlds, and that would have changed things. And I think it is better that there are counter cards than you make something, limit 1 per deck, because they obviously designed on the Lamb and Citadel Sanctuary especially. I think that's a really well designed card. It has dual utility. It's not just a CTM hate card. It counters nicely with Siphon, and people are playing it in Shaper and using Mega. It's making people do different things with tags, and also it is a hate card if the meta goes that way as well. So letting the whole cycle finish and spin out and settle down is it's often a good thing.
I guess the precedent that seems to have been set, though, was that Astro went on the MWL, and then MBN was still the dominant faction, and they made it 1 per deck. So then Breaking News went on the MWL, MBN's still the dominant faction. You almost would think that's the next step, is to make Breaking News 1 per deck. But like you said, there's an argument not to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. It doesn't bother me that much if MBN are the best deck. I guess maybe 16 at Worlds is too many, but I'm not as bothered, especially if those decks have variety inside of MBN, which it didn't at Worlds, not especially. Like with Wizards, they certainly did 3 or 4 different variants. But
yeah, and that's another thing that I'd like to actually mention real quick. Is it a possibility that we might see Wizard take some kind of hit, or are we just close enough to him rotating out that they're just going to let it go?
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, I don't know. Yeah, and asset spam, that's the problem, right, with the asset spam. You kind of need Wizard. I mean, Criminal can compete now with Samujan. They do have enough money to trash everything, but they need an average or above start generally.
Wizard's also 0 link, and there are other runners that do other important things better than Wizard does.
Sure.
There are runners that get out their rigs faster. There are runners that can deal with big ice more effectively. I think it's okay. The fact that Wizard deals with things in remotes and assets and upgrades and centrals better than other runners is important, and being able to do that has been important for the last little while, but it's certainly not the only thing that runners need to be able to do.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with Wizard himself.
Right on. All right, well, anything else you guys want to hit before we wrap this up?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll give you guys a chance to do any shout outs you want. I just want to say thank you guys for coming on. I like that this was kind of like a different thing. We got to actually talk to you while the cards were going down and see what you guys were thinking. So that was pretty neat. Yeah, it's been good. Laurie, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the finals. Jesse, thanks for coming on. I've been a big fan of TWA for a long time. I think when I started playing the game, I think you guys were on like episode 6 or 7 when I first started playing. It was like right after. Yeah, it was like right after Worlds in 2014, I think, is when I started playing. So, I'd listened to a couple Netrunner podcasts and I wasn't that impressed. And then I heard you guys and I was like, yeah, this is the podcast that's it's gonna help me get into this game. So I started listening to all of them. So that was good. So
cool.
Thanks for doing that. I'm glad you guys took on sort of like a different take on the podcast thing. It's nice to have, people talking about the competitive stuff. So thanks for that.
No worries. Thanks for listening, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and
Thanks for running, Rick.
I'm sorry I stole Hollis away from you guys sometimes, but
It's all right. He's got this boundless energy that doesn't seem to end.
He's everywhere, man. He just shows up everywhere, so he can just keep
Mr. Netrunner.
He can just keep going. But yeah, Jesse, you got any shout outs that you want to say before we sign off?
Oh, just like similar to what Laurie said. Thanks so much for running this, Greg. It's been a lot of fun for all of us. I know it's a pain trying to coordinate people all around the globe in different time zones and get them to actually finish matches in in an appropriate amount of time, and also manage this stream, which you've done once a week pretty much. So that's awesome, and it's been great for the community. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Laurie, you got anything else you want to shout out to?
No, just echo Jesse's comments. Thanks very much, and looking forward to the final and the next season, I guess.
Yeah.
Have a good Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah.
Ho, ho, ho.
All right. We'll have an announcement coming up pretty soon about when the finals will take place between Noah and Laurie. So stay tuned for that. And thanks.